Hey there, Smallville fans, and welcome to the FanExpoHQ virtual experiences with the cast of Smallville. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm Aaron Sagers from the Travel Channel show Paranormal Caught on Camera. Now, before we dive in and before we introduce these awesome people that are joining us for this panel, I just want to say that, Smallville is really, I think, probably the first show that we could apply the term "not all heroes wear capes." That was certainly the case with Clark Kent. But really, when it comes to fandom, you guys are the real heroes. You guys are the super ones. Because this panel, this FanExpoHQ virtual experience, it is brought to all of us through your donations. And your donations have allowed FanExpo to contribute more than $10,000 to Feeding America and Food Banks Canada. Great causes during these somewhat strange times. So I want to thank you for your donations and for making this panel happen. Also, as a reminder, autographs, private video chats, including one-on-one video chats, and even video shout-outs are available. So just check out the link that's below for an opportunity to get those chats going. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our cast of Smallville. Of course, you know them. For this show is run, more than 200 episodes, 10 seasons, and I'm excited to bring them in. So even though we can't necessarily hear you, I want you to give them a nice virtual round of applause as I bring them in one by one. Of course, you know her as Alana Lang. Put some virtual applause together for Ms. Kristin Kreuk. Hey, Kristin, thanks for joining.
Hi.
Jazz hands right there.
Jazz hands.
Always a good move. And now that Kristin's here, she can help me add to the applause.
Yes, I will applaud.
I appreciate that. And of course, we know him as Lex Luthor. Let's make some noise for Mr. Michael Rosenbaum. Oh my God! Actual Lex Luthor.
Great dance, Kristin. I like the enthusiasm. You're like.
I like the leisure suit Lex Luthor that you have there. That's like a nice dapper. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Gene Hackman Luthor, right? Yeah.
My favorite. Gene Hack was my favorite.
Yeah, that's I never remembered how great his suit was. Well, of course, we know him as Clark Kent from Smallville. Make some noise virtually wherever you are in the world for Mr. Tom Welling. Hey there, Tom.
Oh,
what up?
I also feel like it's worth mentioning, Tom. It looks to me like you're maybe perhaps wearing a Flash T-shirt or a Lightning Bolt T-shirt. Is that what you got?
I don't know what Flash is. But what's Flash?
I was the Flash, for God's sake.
Oh, okay.
It's good to know, Tom, that you're keeping up on your colleague's career.
That's all I do.
Well, before we dive in, and of course, we have audience questions. We're going to feed those in momentarily. But first off, we were talking a little bit about this backstage, but how are y'all doing after this weird LA earthquake this morning? Michael, a.k.a. DJ Sexy Lexi, I know you experienced it. How you doing, man? How was that?
First of all, nice Ouija board. You sick mofo in the background, Aaron. I see that.
I mean, plan on summoning demons after this. So
I stopped playing with those in high school. Some shit went down. Oh, some crap went down. But earthquake last night. I'm at it's 4:40 in the morning. I was telling these guys, and I mean, I woke up from a deep sleep, just shaking, like going for like a good 30, 40 seconds, and then it was an aftershock, and then there was something else that happened. It was pretty scary. I was like, what else could happen? And then there was brush fires in my neighborhood. I guess Tom's neighborhood too, which he's not here. But I think they fixed it, Tom. I just let you know about that. So
Thank you. Thanks. The water main thing. Thank you.
Tom, did you experience anything?
Well, Michael and I live a few blocks from each other, except I evacuated Los Angeles a few weeks ago and went to Northern California. So Michael's keeping an eye on the house. He said, unless it's over, the cost of his house, he'll take care of it. So, yeah.
Aaron, that's, by the way, when he says I look after his house, he was like, "Hey, dude, I left town. Would you mind just picking up this little box in front of my house?" I'm like, "Sure." I went there. This box, I have a pickup truck so big. I had like all this wine because we made our own wine. I had so much of Welling's crap in my house. It was like a month before he got it. I think I actually delivered it to him.
I think you need to go back. Yeah.
So it's like, could you look after my house? And then, by the way, I've got this refrigerator that's being delivered. Maybe just move that in a little bit.
You got a pickup truck?
Yeah. And Kristin, how about you? Actually, I don't know where you're based right now. Are you Vancouver or are you in LA?
So far away from LA. I am in Toronto right now.
Oh, okay.
I only heard about it on the interwebs.
Well, I guess Toronto, that's also a relative place of sanity during these weird times.
Do you follow LA Earthquakes on Twitter? Is that how you found out LA Earthquakes on Twitter?
Yes.
She found out because I told her.
The interwebs.
The interwebs.
Well, Michael's reaction was significant enough that it was picked up by various news outlets.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Pay attention to him?
I don't know what the heck they did with the news there, but
you're a significant voice in the earthquake story. Well, overall, how have you guys been doing during this weird time? Have you been picking up any activities, becoming a mixologist, making some killer banana bread? How have you been passing the time?
Kristin?
I've been at school. I'm working online to get my degree, so I've just been doing, it's weird when this becomes just me. I've been working on my classes and reading a lot of books and writing essays and doing that kind of thing. That's about it now.
You've been working out too. I see some pipes going on. Have you been working out, Kristin?
Not more than usual, Michael. I've been working out about the same. In fact, a little less because of the fact the gyms are still closed.
All right. Fair enough.
Well, how about you, Michael? Are you also working out a lot and getting some good guns?
You know what? I'm trying to work out every other day just to feel a little better than I feel. I'm trying to not watch the news as much, trying to be respectful and wear my mask just so, just be respectful. And, I'm doing the podcast inside with Michael Rosenbaum. That's been going great. And, I've just been trying to keep busy and Tom and I have been talking about some ideas, doing stuff together. And we're just trying to be creative and trying to do the best we can like everybody else. There's a lot of people doing a lot worse. And by the way, thank you again for helping feed America and donating for this. This is just amazing. So thank you guys out there. Tom?
Take it away, Tom.
I've been enjoying myself as much as I can, trying to just hang out with my family and just be active. Like I said, I left Los Angeles so I could have a little more space. But we are practicing all the things you're supposed to do when we do go out in public. But just enjoying family time. That's what I've been trying to do. Yeah.
What's with the creepy doll in the background, bro? You got this empty room with a creepy doll.
Are you
Rosie? Yeah.
That's Rosie.
Oh, Rosie.
That doesn't make it better. Who's Rosie?
Rosie.
So in order to do this, I have to go to my in-laws' house down the street from the house that we're at right now, and use the internet, and my computer sits on their router in order to have an actual feed for this. So I don't get to move around a lot of things. I'm not allowed to move that printer or that doll Rosie. So this is what you get.
It's nice.
Well, I'm glad you're broadcasting from a safe place, because on some level it looks like something that like you've checked into a hostel or somewhat cramped space for the panel.
This isn't where I live. Michael rented out he rented out a fan's bedroom in order to do this.
A fan that's got a great Lost Boys poster. And what's on your mask there, Mike?
No, just cheap promotion for the podcast. You can get this on the online store. It's a side of your mask. There you go. It's really comfortable, actually. Oh, Tom.
10 minutes. Can you believe that?
What?
Huh?
Well, okay. So Michael's got the shameless promotion going on there. It's curious. During this time, everybody's been doing the Zoom calls and these video chats. Is this actually the first time that you guys have communicated with each other via video during this quarantine? No. Well, I think you've done some other panels, but yeah, go on.
Well, we did a convention prior to this, but we also did something for the Ronald McDonald House, and Michael brought us into. We raised a lot of money for kids who not only have a lot of difficulties, but given the circumstances of our current time, made it even more difficult. And so, again, Michael, thank you for bringing me into that, because we helped a lot of people, and I know you have close ties to those kids and to that organization, and that felt really good to do, because, you know, as much as we feel isolated too, and to be able to reach out and connect with fans and raise money for important causes, I mean, it honestly feels good. So yeah, that's the end of that. Michael?
Well, I thank you guys for doing that, you and Kristin, and without you two, it wouldn't have been possible. Really, they wanted the three, and
we tried to do it alone, but they wouldn't let you.
Yeah, they wouldn't raise as much money, but it was huge. It was just a really good thing when you can reach out and do something so simple where you just get together and do a Zoom or talk and promote to raise money for something. The Ronald McDonald House is I'm very close with them, and so thank you guys. It was amazing. So it's always nice to help out.
It's something of a schmaltzy question, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. I think, especially during this time, this weird time globally, people kind of look to not only leaders, but also those that they respect, and even heroes and heroic characters. Has this time sort of made you reflect at all about sort of the fandom, the Smallville fandom, and what your representations kind of mean to them? Because you did represent these heroic, iconic characters. Well, Michael maybe not so heroic all the time, but you get my drift. Has it made you reflect on sort of the impact of your roles? Yeah.
Well, I would just say that, when you have a lot of time to yourself to sort of think about
easy.
No, but I will.
It's a family show.
Like, I know every show will say my fans are the best and these fans, but and not to toot our own horn, but we were kind of like the first show of all these, and all the shows are great, but to have fans still sticking around and going to cons and coming to the virtual things and the support, it's unbelievable. I mean, remember, we started in 2001. I think this is our 20th anniversary coming up. So, I mean, it's remarkable how lucky we are, and how the fan base, like Hulu now has all the original episodes. And so now we're getting this younger audience, and it's almost like we're still around. We're on the air, it almost feels like. And the love and appreciation for the show is amazing. And in return, I mean, people say this and it could sound cliche, but without you guys, it doesn't exist. Without you guys showing up, without you watching the show, without you supporting us, that doesn't exist. So, I reflect. I think, wow, we were really lucky, and we're still very lucky.
I think on top of that, this is a slightly different angle on this, but I think that this time has kind of amplified how important it is to have the idea of heroes, to have shows that we can connect to and feel lightened by and hopeful around, because there's so much kind of despair. And so I think shows like Smallville and heroic shows in general kind of give us something to hang on to that we all need at times like this.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah,
Well said. Yeah.
and I think that like things like we're doing right now, I love the fact that we're kind of here to give people an outlet to maybe, they've been quarantined, maybe they can't go and do what they want to do, but we can maybe provide some sort of excitement or outlet during right now just to have fun and have a good time. But I agree with Michael that we couldn't do this without the fans, and I reflect on how fortunate we are to have had the run we had and the success that the show had, which then brings us to here. So it's kind of a full circle. But I hope we have some fun today.
I by the way, Tom, I agree 100%. I think, I forgot to say that, and I'm glad you did, but it is fun. I mean, we have fun. When we go to these conventions, it's not just like, I'm sure there are some people who are just like, whether they're shy and that's fine, or whether they're not, they just kind of, Tom, I can just see there's an energy that we create, that the fans create, and we like being part of that. And it's just, I think we have a really great time. We go back, and it's a chance to kind of talk about something that we love and appreciate, and So.
Well, I think that it's interesting. So Michael, of course, mentioned that you're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the premiere of this show, which is insane in of itself, that we're now essentially close to a generation later. Well, with that, though, new audiences are being exposed to that. And there's a question from Brian Nussbaum in the comment section. He brings up, Tom, your appearance on the crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths, which his question is, how was it coming back to that character? And I think that's a great question. In addition to that, my add-on to that would be, did you feel like you were suddenly being kind of connecting with this new generation of these fans that largely knew the CW universe, Arrowverse?
Well, okay, so the answer to the first question is it was awesome. The answer to your question was not at all. It didn't occur to me. What I did when I came back, they wrote a really compelling scene where I got to play the Clark from Smallville, not a different version of that, but 10 years later. And what I did as an actor is I actually thought that Clark would have grown up to be more like Jonathan Kent. So what I kind of incorporated was some of the things that John Schneider did with the gloves, where I take off the gloves and sort of the way I stood and the way I sort of walked away and looked away when I spoke, kind of like a John Wayne thing. So I was actually more thinking that I was hoping that the fans that watched Smallville got to see a 10 years older Clark, and I hope they were fulfilled. If the younger generation liked, even better. But I honestly wasn't thinking about them.
Well, it was a great question anyhow, Tom. Well, and Francesca wants to know, do you feel that it's an interesting point because of when the show premiered, do you feel that your portrayals of the characters would have been influenced by what fans were commenting on social media back in 2001, before we really even had Facebook? And do you think that not only your portrayals, but do you think that would have influenced the direction of the show overall? Kristin, why don't you start on that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like back in the olden days when they just had forums, there's actually a term for this that I can't remember the name of right now, but I would sometimes go and find like the worst things people would say about me and like just immerse myself in like those horrible comments. And I guess it's a roundabout way of saying, I don't know how much influence that had then on my work. And now having people have the opportunity to kind of comment all the time, I feel like it would just become noise in the background. But I'm sure that social media would have had more of an effect on our show. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I agree with both. I think for me, I'm not going to say I was reckless. I wasn't necessarily reckless, and but I think with social media, you could definitely get sucked into it, and it's almost like you really care what people have to say. Like people could say 20 great things about you, and then the one thing they say about you, like, why would they say that? And I was just interviewing Ben McKenzie on the podcast, and he said that he would do that, and he was like, why am I torturing myself? Why am I doing this? there are just haters out there. There's always going to be, you can please some of the people some of the time, with a few of the people all the time, but you can't please all the people all the time.
That's a good. Wow, did you make that up? That's great.
I think Bob Dylan did. Before that, it might have been a really famous poet, probably. But ultimately, you just have to do the best you can. And I think that if there were social media when this show was around, I think it probably would have hurt it more, because I'm playing Lex Luthor, and they could have easily said Lex wouldn't do that, Gene Hackman wouldn't have done that, and I just said, hey, I'm just going to be real and try to play the role as believable as possible, and just do the best I can, and not try to emulate or be like anyone else. And that paid off, but I think you'd hope that seeing other comments and stuff wouldn't sort of sway how maybe I should be more evil. They're saying I should be evil. I think that would have messed it up. So I'm glad that we didn't have to experience that.
Agreed.
Yeah, how about you, Tom?
I really never had a problem with not looking at comments. I really don't give a shit. Like anybody else who wants to comment, I'm never going to see it. I really don't care. But I will tell you this. It affected the show in the best way, because the fans who did comment, the showrunners listened and listened to what worked, what people liked. And there were storylines that were maneuvered as a result of what was happening online. So it was effective in that way. But I don't do that. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions in here, Lindsay Amos asks this, and this is something that I think it comes up a lot at Comic Cons about anything taken from the set of the show, along with, I think another popular question is sort of pranks that you played on one another. That's a popular question. So you can respond to those, but in addition, I'm just kind of curious about your take as to why you think people ask those twofer questions, why those are so popular questions at cons, why people want to know that.
I think what they're really asking, and what I ask back, is what would you have taken and what prank would you have played? Because they're putting themselves in our shoes, or what they think would have been our shoes. And the person who stole the most shit was Rosenbaum. That's for sure. And so it's probably best if he answers that.
I think, honestly, this may not be the answer to the question, and it may not. But so what I think about is when they see us on panels and they see us doing things together, they sort of go, wow, they have a good relationship. Or I don't know if everyone else, a lot of people do when they're working together for so many years. And Tom and I have so much fun that it just kind of looks like, and Kristin, she's got a great sense of humor. So it sort of feels like, what did they do on that set? What was it like? Because it seems like, but to be honest with you, there were pranks. There were, Tom messed with me, I messed with him. We goof around. There was just constant that to stay sane, because I think the workload and the amount of work we were doing, especially in those early seasons, was so much that you had to have fun. But I don't forget all the work, when people think, oh my gosh, it must have been so much fun. It is work. It sounds funny, but it's a commitment where you have to be on, because the show is successful and you have to keep bringing your A game. And, you want to be great. And going on set every day, especially Tom, who worked every day, it wasn't all just cutting up and having fun. It was, sort of like, we got to work. I remember there's sometimes when we're goofing off a lot, and Tom, as fun as he is, he's kind of our leader. He'd be like, guys, let's go. I want to make today so we don't have to do this Saturday. Let's, you know what I mean? And he was right. And it was a lot of work. And there's always time to have fun. But it was a very difficult show. They put a lot of money into it. And everybody, I think, the intensity elevated and the workload, and everybody just worked a lot and worked hard.
I think one of the themes that made the show successful was how do we make each scene even better? And I think somehow we all had that mentality. And, even though I may have been there more often, it was so cool that I was working with different actors all the time, because every actor brought something different. So if I was working with Kristin, it was like, oh, cool, I'm working with Kristin. And then Mike would show up, like, cool, I'm working with. And so for me, I may have been there longer, but all these people made it all happen. I couldn't have done it just because I was there. And I think you get all those different flavors and shades with the same idea of elevating the material and doing the work. And enjoying the process is a lot of fun. There's times when hey, listen, it's 3:30 in the morning. We're probably going to go to 6:30. Everybody just needs to, shut the fuck up and like do their job. And then there's other times where it's like, you know what? This is a very intense scene, but like a little joke here and there gets everybody in the same rhythm. Michael's really good at that.
Well, I was always playing, like you guys know. I mean, I was playing such an intense character. It was such the opposite of me, brain-wise, money-wise, all these things, that for me, the way I worked was I had to be goofing off until we were rolling, because otherwise I would go insane. I mean, it's just so intense. I'm not used to wearing suits and ties and living in a castle and driving fast cars. So if I stayed with that character too much, I think I would have just lost. I mean, I probably did lose my mind a couple of times, as you know, Tom. Remember that time when someone broke into my van?
Yes.
I went outside at 6 a.m. My alarm went off, and I was in the middle of like straight jacket, crazy legs.
If you're allowed to tell that story right now, it would be awesome.
Dude, I like took this. What do they call it? That you hang your clothes up in a not clothing line, clothesline. In a closet.
Rod.
A rod. Thank you for. Wow, I wish it was a bigger word. And then I took it out and I ran to the van at like 6 a.m. and my friend Tom and Deneen were crashing there, and they were back, and I go, and I went to. I saw the glass was broken in my van, and I opened up the van, and I was like, the guy was in my van. I'm like, get the F out of my van, you smacking the thing. Get out of my van, I'm going to beat the shit out,
He hit his own van.
I had a van. And my friend Tom goes, dude, keep him in your van. I'm calling the cops. Get in the van. Stay in the van. And I was going nuts. And then the guy had the audacity sitting there going, while we're waiting for the cops, like, hey, man, you got to smoke? No! What's wrong with you? I got to smoke. So it was like, it was an intense, I remember that. Like I honestly was so upset. Like the guy broke into my van. I'm tired. I'm already going crazy with this character. And if he would have done anything, I probably would have hit him. I would have broken his kneecaps. I was pretty upset, but I didn't touch him.
Did you wrap for the day after that, or did you have to go back to film?
I had to work 2 hours later. What's funny is the cops came and go, Mr. Rosenbaum, did you see the man break into your van? I go, no, but he was in my freaking van, dude. He's like, I know, Mr. Rosenbaum, but did you see him actually break into your van? I go, oh, I see what you're doing. Yes, I saw him break the window, and because they needed to hear that before they arrested him. And then they arrested him, and then the next day they let him go. So that really helped.
I just kind of hope that this guy is watching the stream somewhere. That you turned him into a fan, and
I'm not sure he's watching this.
I got a quick story for you. So you guys, some of the fans of Smallville might know a show called Supernatural. Jensen and Jared are buddies, and they lived not too far away from where I did in Vancouver for some time. And it was toward the end of the season, and I had some stuff that they borrowed at their house, but they were on set, and I wrapped, so I went to go get it. And the code to the alarm to their house, I put it in, it didn't work. I put it in, but the third time it didn't work, the alarm goes off. And we're in Canada, British Columbia, Vancouver. The alarm goes off. I mean, it's loud, and it's like a nice house. And I'm like, what? Well, all right, well, I got nuts. So I sit down on the steps, and within 3 minutes, cop cars are pulling in, like 4 cop cars. They're like, hey, get down. And I'm already sitting, and I'm like, it's okay, guys. My friend lives here. And they're like, yeah, we've heard that before. I'm like, no. My friend Jared and Jensen, like, they live here. They're like, put your hands behind your back. They cuff me. They put me against the wall. And I'm like, really? And the one guy has me against the wall, and he goes, by the way, I love your show, dude. Great show. And I'm like, awesome, thanks. I really appreciate that. And not 10 minutes later, Jared comes home from work, and he's like, no, that's my buddy. And they uncuff me. I'm like, sorry. And then they all just left. And I was like, that was horrible. That was no fun.
I wonder, Tom, if you would. He's like, hey, I love your show. And you look back and go, really?
Yeah, I should.
You think this is what I got to do if I'm on a hit show? I got to rob these guys.
Really? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank
you, guys.
I mean, that's also the benefit of being on a show before social media was really a thing, because that would have been all over TMZ. Yeah. Kristin, you have anything that you would like to add to that?
What are we talking about?
Apparently, altercations with people
Wait.
breaking into your home or vans?
No, I think that I mostly just came to work and then I left work. I don't know any of these pranks. I feel like I was totally out of the loop. But I like hearing the stories.
Well, I think it's interesting. First off, Vancouver's a lovely place. And when you guys were there, it was pretty much you, Supernatural. And then actually, Tom, when you were doing Lucifer, I don't recall if they were back in LA or if you were filming in Vancouver. Were you?
We were in LA.
You were in LA. Okay. Well, I mean, having made any return trips to Vancouver since, is it a little bit wild to you that it's essentially now CW central, that the whole town is dominated by the industry and by these shows?
Well, I've been back to Vancouver a couple of times, and the first thing that landed on me was how beautiful and how much I enjoyed it, because while we were doing Smallville, I never saw Vancouver. I was always at work. And I kind of associated it with a little bit of feeling jet lagged all the time. But having gone back, I'm like, wow, this city's actually pretty cool. Like, I want to come back again. I mean, I don't know why Kristin would leave there for Toronto, but that's be something for her.
Yeah. Vancouver's the best. It's beautiful. It's so I guess that's why I was really just going to work, is that I lived in Vancouver. It was my home. My friends from high school were there. I lived at my parents' house for a long time when we started the show. So my life kind of just continued, but it's such a beautiful city, and it sucks that a lot of you guys didn't get the chance to experience it as a place, not a place that you worked.
Right.
And yeah, it's just so wonderful.
Well, because even Rosenbaum would fly in, work, fly out. Like, there was never really time. You had a houseboat for a while in the water, but I don't know if you were there.
Yeah, I was in a houseboat for a year, and that was a terrific time. And I got to see a lot of the beauty. But, like, again, Kristin, lives there, family was there, and we were there 10 months a year. And it's like, you wanted to kind of go back home. It's being home. There's a difference. Being in your house, being out. And I didn't really have that. And Tom, you're constantly working, so you're not hanging out with anybody except that one time we went to Seinfeld to see Seinfeld.
That's right.
That was the only time, like no social media, that I felt like, oh, we're doing something right. I think we're on a hit show, because we got mobbed leaving a Seinfeld thing. Like, people were chasing us down the street. Remember that one?
Yeah, I do. But also, we got the tickets because Seinfeld's manager knew that he was a Superman fan. And I don't know if it was my manager talking to his manager, and it was like the first time I was ever given tickets to a show. And then I was like, we're going to meet Jerry. And then at the end, like, no, you're not.
I remember going,
okay, cool.
Talking about how busy and how demanding this show was, I don't think that's surprising to anyone that watched it and for the fans. But it's interesting, when this was being filmed, it was still 20, 21, 22, 23 episodes a season, which is such a haul, and decreasingly so. We're seeing fewer of those types of shows outside of, I guess, certain network shows. Could you go back to that kind of schedule? I mean, I guess, Kristin, with Beauty and the Beast, you had some pretty big episode orders, but
we did 2 seasons of 21, 22, and it was normal at that point in time, and then we brought it down to 13, and now I do 8 episodes in a season, and I can't imagine doing 9 months out of the year on a show. I can't imagine writers having to write 21 to 23 episodes of a show in a season. It just seems like a crazy amount of work.
Well, you figure, yeah, Kristin, it's right. It's like, people wonder why, like, oh, well, they're like 10 good episodes in season 2. And like, imagine writing 20 episodes a year. You can't, like, that's why these streaming shows, there's 8 episodes, there's 10. They all could be great, because there's only 8 or 10. They should be great. So for me, like, when I did Impastor for 2 years, it was a great show, and I filmed in Vancouver, and I was the lead executive producer on the show, and I was working constantly, but it was a half hour, so it was manageable. I had more fun. I lived on the water. I was able to, but 10 months a year, I don't want to do a 1 hour, 10 months a year as a lead role or second lead or third. That just doesn't interest me anymore.
Could you go do something like that, Tom?
I mean, listen, the truth is, if it was something you wanted to do, yes. Do I want to do everything? No. I will tell you that due to my lack of experience early on, allowed me to embrace that schedule, because if I had worked as much as Rosenbaum had before the show started, I would have been smart enough to say this isn't fair and this isn't human. Like, it's really unsafe. I think when you're able to do 10 episodes, you can really focus on those 10. I think when you get to 2022, you're really just trying to just sell more commercials and keep it on the air. And that's okay too. But I think the idea of focusing for 3 months, really, it's almost like a film idea. It's 3 months and you focus really hard, you make everything great, instead of 10 months out of the year where every 1 out of 4 moments is great. That's sort of the formula that I came up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's worth noting we have folks checking in from Brazil, France, Spain, and the United Kingdom. And we have a related question there. Alex VM from the chat wants to know that she actually says that she or he learned English by watching the show. But since you have such an international fan base, is there a place on your bucket list that you still want to travel to? I think it's also a great question right now, since we can't really travel a whole lot. So what's on your travel bucket list? Rosenbaum, why don't you start?
Italy for sure. Brazil. You know, I'd love to go to Mexico again, but South America. I want to go all over Europe. I want to Spain. You know, I'd love to go to Asia. I'd love to check it out. I want to explore more. And yeah, Tom.
New Zealand. I want to go back to New Zealand. I love that place.
Tom, it looks like you're going to New Zealand right now. It's
I wanted to cover that a little bit.
Right.
Much better.
It's like you thought Rosenbaum was going to have a longer answer, so you're like, I have a minute. Based on track record, I think that was a safe call normally.
He could have just said Europe, but he had to get detailed. I thought he was going to keep going.
How about you, Kristin?
Oh gosh, I mean, I always want to go to places. I want to go to Kenya and Indonesia because my mom's from there, and I'd love to go back to Patagonia.
Even to Patagonia, I want to go there too.
Oh, so good! So many places. So many places.
Those are good places.
We're all travelers except for Michael. Michael's a little bit of a homebody.
I travel. I just went to. I do travel. I've been to Australia 4 times. I've been the band. We went to Germany and toured there. I've been to England and Ireland, and yeah. I mean, I do travel, but it's got to be right, and it's got to be well organized, and I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere without Yeah, it's got to be.
Well, I'm going to stay with you for a second, Michael. I think this is a good question. It's from Bonsai. I don't know if that's their real name, but they want to know how many inside jokes have cropped up from the podcast Patreon.
How many what?
Okay.
Inside jokes. Inside jokes.
What about inside jokes?
Have there been a lot of inside jokes from the Patreon that have cropped up from for the podcast?
Let's see.
I sort of still don't understand it, but like I have this awesome Patreon that's just like all these people join the Patreon to support the podcast inside of you, so you get all these there's chats with me, there's just so many different things, and it's like a community, and they're so supportive and amazing. It's like a family. It's crazy, and there's a lot of inside jokes and things that I have a thing called shit talking with Rosenbaum, where certain tiers get to ask guest questions, and there's always little things, but they're a big part of the podcast and big supporters, and that's all I can say about that.
All right. Well, there's your answer, Bonsai.
Yeah, I mean, inside jokes. Right here. Yeah. Anyway, we do a thing called Inside of Me, where I
Can you repeat that?
What?
Can you repeat your answer? Sorry, I was talking to Thompson.
No, I'm not going to repeat the answer, Tom. But talking to Thompson, I love it. His kid's 1. He's 2.
Almost 2, yeah.
Yeah, almost 2. But on the page, I do Inside of Me, and fans ask me questions, or the patrons, my patrons.
Yeah.
So I go, I'm gonna have more fun. I'm kind of at home. I don't have a lot of time. So I started dressing up as different characters sitting across from me and filming both of us, me as a woman, me as this guy from the Outback, me as this idiot, just like different characters asking me questions. And they're really fun. And so, I don't know.
Woman is a character? You as woman?
What?
Woman?
There's a woman who I dressed up. It's sort of close like sorority boys, but I got a wig and boobs and a dress. And I was like, and I make fun of myself. It's very self-deprecating. So I'm like, okay, so John, why do you have so many toys? You're a grown man. What is it? You have puppets? Anyway, who cares? Anyway. And I would just start doing things where she kind of like nails me on things like, oh, you're 48 and you're single. Okay, well, whatever. Hey, it's weird, but whatever. And I just kind of self-deprecate and everyone's sort of in on it and they have fun with it. So I don't know. Bonsai, I gave it my best.
Yeah, no, I think Bonsai should be happy with that response.
Hey!
I mean, when you guys do these panels in real life or virtually, obviously you work together for so long. You've probably talked a lot about Smallville. Maybe when you're backstage, maybe not necessarily talking at length about Smallville. So after that, there's what are you doing with work, what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. But once you move beyond that, beyond work, beyond all that, what are the things that you find yourself going back to, the topics that you enjoy talking about with one another? Is it recommending shows to binge watch? Is it, what are the things that you enjoy digging on? Tom, why don't you start?
Well, I mean, I see and talk to Rosenbaum a little bit more than I do with Kristin, but it's always great to see her. And that's a lot of just catching up on what's going on in your life. And like, that's awesome. And that's cool. With Rosenbaum, it's a lot of like, what are you watching now? What did you do yesterday? Why does your breath smell so bad? It's more intimate.
Look at my on Zoom. Kristin?
We do this every day. This is just the first time that we all do. Kristin, Michael, and I, and some other cast members, we actually Zoom every day. This we just
Zoom.
10 years of working together was not enough. You need a daily check-in.
I'm just starting to get to know these people. It's
true.
It's actually true.
Yeah.
I'm like, I saw Kristin last year, and she's like, "What's new?" And I'm like, "Well, my son is," and she's like, "Oh, really?" Like, it was all catch up, and Michael's seen Thompson a lot because he comes to the house a lot, and it's fun. It's so enjoyable to see these people that we spent so much time together with and made this really cool thing. And the more time that goes by, the cooler it is to me, and the more I appreciate it. But like, see everyone grow. It's so much fun, and I understand that a lot of this is talking about Smallville, but when we talk to each other, it's really not about Smallville at all. It's more about the human growth that we're witnessing with each other, which is really beautiful.
Yeah, I agree, Kristin.
Yeah, I mean, I talk with the girls a lot, and have become friends with them really after Smallville, and I mean, we talk about everything that friends would talk to each other about, kind of what we're going through, what we're struggling with, how we're feeling, along with books and movies and whatever. I think it's just kind of the substance of a friendship.
Yeah, I was also queuing up Rosenbaum to go on his alone rant. How much
missed it.
I like the show, but
I'm sorry I missed that one.
On a serious note, I mean, it's I think in life you either like people or you don't, and you just sort of like distance yourself from people you don't really care for. You have nothing in common. Tom and Kristin are just two people that are just likable, that I like being around, that I always have fun with, whether we hang out a lot. Like Kristin and I don't, but we see each other at conventions, or we'll text each other and how you doing and whatever. There's this element of caring, and it's nice. And it's like I always like being around them. Tom and I are more like, we're always thinking of ideas and what could we come up with, and especially now, it's like how can we be creative and create something, and it's fun, and just having a laugh, and with Kristin, by the way, I'm interviewing tomorrow on the podcast. So anyway,
tomorrow,
yeah, it's.
Well, I will jump in that what we're all talking about has been earned through many years of work and trust.
Yeah.
So it's like when we all talk to each other, there's no failure in what you're talking about because you've earned the other person's trust, and we actually have proven that we care about each other based upon the last 20 years of our lives. So we have that going for us.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Go on, Michael.
I just was going to say, you know, I feel like if Kristin, honestly, I'm not saying this because we're on it, but if Kristin or Tom ever asked me for anything and said, hey, I need your help, I would be there. I mean, this is someone these people I've known for 20 years and worked with and spent more time with them than most of my family, or if not all my family. So,
however, you have to know that if you call Michael, it goes straight to voicemail, and he says, don't leave a message, send me an email or text. So if he got the email or text, I need help, he'd be there.
Somebody came to see you when you weren't feeling well a long time ago. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh. and then you still asked him to move a big heavy box outside of your house.
Yeah. Well, he's there for me, and I know that in my heart.
I really hope on the next one of these things, Michael, that you actually broadcast from Tom's house. Just to switch it up. Well, Tom, you actually said that you find yourself appreciating this show more as time goes on. And I think that's like just sort of a natural component to getting older and getting distance from anything you work on. But can you add to that a little bit more about why you think that is? Why you think you appreciate it a little more?
Yeah, what I've been able to sort of, when Smallville was over, I kind of took off for a little while, and I kind of came back. But I think when we were doing it, it was all about Smallville and the work, and there was no time for anything else. And the only connection you had to the outside world were like interviews, and a lot of interviews, it's really people just trying to get you to say things that they can use for their own weapons on their interviews to, like, I don't know, use against you or to bring more attention to themselves. But then when you go to the conventions, you meet the fans who are happy, who want to talk about the enjoyment that they had with the show and the attachment they had watching with their family or their friends. It's a more immediate feeling that you get from people who actually watch the show instead of an interviewer who's like putting it into their own words for their own benefit. So that's what I really love about these things. When we go into the private chats, when we do the conventions, we're literally being able to talk to people who literally watched the show and enjoyed them, and that's fun.
Yeah.
You're muted, Aaron.
You muted yourself. Aaron, you muted yourself.
Mute myself.
By the way, Aaron Sager's on Paranormal Caught on Camera, a show that I would watch because I love that shit.
It's very weird, but yeah, you should watch it.
Is it real? Like, do you guys really see paranormal stuff, or is it all like produced?
Sort of my shtick is that you just look at footage and you're like, huh, what could that be? It's a very kind of hypothesis-driven type of show, very rhetorical. And a lot of times it's just people that have shaky camera footage.
Like Ancient Aliens, where they're like, ancient alien theorists propose that there could be, and it's like
I'm not saying it's Sasquatch, but Sasquatch, that kind of thing. Michael, I was just kind of curious. Did you, because of your friendship with Tom, and you've been out, I think, you and I had met at a con a long time ago initially. Did it take a little bit of convincing to Tom to say, come to this world of these cons, because it is a really like embracing kind of expression.
18 years, Aaron. And I think, look, there are two different people. There are two kinds of people. One who's just like, not everybody could be me. The world would be insane and, whatever. It is insane, by the way. But, I'm sort of, I'm really outgoing in terms of like, I'm a fan myself of different things. So I feel like I can relate. And Tom's sort of, he's not as, I wouldn't say open, but he just, he's a little bit more shy. He's a little more reserved. He's private. And so when I told him, I was like, listen, man, you should be doing this. He was like, it wasn't that he didn't love fans. It wasn't he didn't love it. It was just like, maybe it wasn't for him. And then when I kind of kept telling him, I go, I think you'll like it. Come with me. And just, so once we're on the panels and once we're standing next to each other, signing and hugging people and taking pictures, he realized, wow, this is really fun and people are awesome. And it's just changed the game. So he's been doing that for, I guess, with me for a little while now, about a year and a half, 2 years. So it's been cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're here because of, as far as for me, because of Michael. I know Kristin took even a little more convincing, perhaps. But yeah, Michael was like, just trust me, dude. It's fun. And going back to what I said before, year round, no one stands in line for 2 hours to tell you that they hated your show. You're meeting people who are very positive, and they just have questions, and it's fun. It's positive energy.
Except that one guy. Remember, the one guy waited in line for 30 minutes for me, and then he comes up and goes, dude, Gene Hackman was the best Lex Luthor. And I go, yeah, I agree with you. All right. He kind of asked off, and I was like, but I think he's just trying to be funny, trying to get attention. But, most people are just great. They don't most people don't show up at your house, God forbid, or invade, because that's just crossing the line. And most people don't do that. You hear about that stuff, but it's rare. Most people are genuinely just real cool people, Yeah,
don't do that.
It's never a good idea. Well, Kristin AC in the chat wants to know, looking back on the role of Lana Lang, did you find was it empowering for you playing Lana?
I think I have a really complicated answer to that. Yes, overall it was. And I think that there's a couple aspects to it, in that the character itself was one thing, but for me, learning how to communicate and stand up for myself and deal with being on set, and even learning how to craft a character and understand what it took to do that. Like in the beginning of the show, if I struggled with something that was written and I had to talk to one of the producers, I would do it on the phone all the time. And I was such a shy teenager and going into my early 20s. And I would call them from my trailer and just try to disguise my crying, because my voice would just crack. Even just standing up for something I believed in to that degree was so hard for me. So through the span of the show, I got to a point where I felt very confident in expressing myself and allowing for, blowback from that expression, and understanding that conflict was fine. And so it was, in the end, from a process perspective, it was very empowering for me. And the character herself in the beginning felt less empowering and became more and more empowering, I think, as, the writers got a sense of who she was, and as I felt more capable of making her into something that I wanted her to be.
Awesome.
I'm a big fan of shows that I watch that it's very important that a character's love interest does reflect upon their character. And I always felt that Kristin brought a strength and a heart to this girl. I mean, she was a girl. We were all in high school at the time. The character was a girl, but the immovable force kind of strength. And I think for Clark, that was also a big part of the attraction of, here's this person whose feet are so steady on the ground and such strength. And I think people saw that. I think the show in and of itself had a lot of heart. But I think that relationship on screen worked because of that mutual respect and that just kind of looking up to each other and trying to grow together sort of thing.
I don't think there was a person who grew more than Kristin on that show. I mean, just...
She looks the same. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, she really does. But just the maturity and just she's always been smart, but you always carry with you this intelligence and this sort of you were always who you were, and you were just. But watching you grow, and I just remember by season 6, we've talked about that. But in the episode Lexmas, where it was the first time I was like, hey, Kristin might actually like me as a friend. I mean, I don't think she, and it was just there was a certain thing of mutual respect and love and all that. And it just was but watching you, it was, even till now, going back to school, you're always pushing yourself and always growing. I wish I had that discipline. I'm trying to do that, with my podcast, and trying to be more vulnerable and more confident and more whatever, and just be real. And so I admire that in you. So.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, we started when we were so young, especially me. I was very young. I grew up to be an adult on that show. I had never.
Half your life ago.
What was that?
It's like half your life ago.
Well, now we're in sort of the what's that, Michael?
I just couldn't imagine. I mean, if I was 18 doing the show, I would never have made it. I just wasn't strong enough mentally. Like, I just hadn't. I think I don't know. There's just at a certain age, I couldn't imagine. Like, it's taken me when I was 26, I was still 18.
Yeah, but I'll interrupt you because when I started that show, I was like the equivalent of like 16 when it came to the business. But I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people like you, Michael, and Schneider, and Glover, and Kristin, even you. I mean, everybody, like, I was just like, I'm going to learn from all these people who every single one of you had more experience than I did. And I just, like, learned and tried to learn and learn and learn. And I think that's what Clark was doing, too. So that was like a kind of a gift. It was like a reality and fantasy at the same time. But I think, Michael, when you're lucky enough to be surrounded with people who not only are successful and talented, but want to help and nurture, that's like the perfect scenario for a show to at least have a chance of succeeding.
That's true. Yeah. It wasn't egos. I mean, you were incredibly malleable, and you were just like soaking it in, going, hey, I want to get better, kind of like up behind the ears or whatever. And you just were like, how do I do this? Let's do it. Let's do it again. Oh, that didn't. That's let's do it again. And I think we all started doing that. Where I'm like, you should do that again. Okay. Right. There was support because we all wanted each other to be better. And there definitely was that, which there weren't a lot of egos when it came to that stuff.
Well, a lot of people don't know that every different episode is a different director. And sometimes we had repeat directors. But what we all had in common is we were all there all the time. So we would sort of help each other and sort of wake each other up a little bit when maybe we weren't having our best day, and that was helpful.
Yeah.
Well, we are running out of time, so we can end on a silly note, silly question. But what would your characters be doing right now during quarantine? What would their activity be? Rosenbaum, you want to start on that?
I feel like I'm back in 10th grade. Michael, would you like to take that? No, I'll take the 0. Lex would probably be counting his money. He would be trying to find Miracle Grow for his hair. He'd
definitely be into hemp. He'd be into like growing the marijuana.
Finding a way like that he could be the next president. I think that's what he'd be. Like, how do I? All right, if this guy could do it, I could do this.
Yeah, not even not go into the like Howard Hughes direction of growing his fingernails super long and becoming a major. Not that. So
for president, I mean, that's probably what he'd be doing.
Yeah. Well,
he had asked. You got to give him that.
Tom, how about you? What would Clark be doing in quarantine?
Well, it's funny. The first thing I thought was we kind of saw that with the what we did with the Crisis crossover, which is I like that so much. The idea that that's what Clark would be doing years later. That I think he'd be like chopping wood, then going inside and having dinner with his family. I mean, we kind of saw it. I mean, that's all I got.
All right. And
superpowers. So I think she'd be out there trying to solve problems.
Are there any comic books that followed Smallville that show where Lana went with her kryptonite skin? I was wondering where she went.
Somebody's writing right now. Somebody's watching this. No.
Yeah,
it's probably fan fiction out there. Yeah. I do know. I mean, Lex became president in the comics. I know that much, but so. Probably would not have done a bad job comparatively. But well, on that note, I think we're wrapping things up. So I do want to say again, first off, thank all of you guys for being here. But also, again, to the fans out there, thank you for donating your time, donating your money, helping Feeding America and Food Banks Canada, raising more than $10,000. That is huge. And again, there's time. As a reminder, you can get your autographs, your private video chats, your one-on-one video chats, and even some video shout outs. So just check out that link below.
I love you. Thank you. Like that.
Yeah, exactly. See, we're recording that. That's going to be my shout out now. Well, guys, thank you for being here. It was awesome. It was great catching up with you. Take care of one another. Take care of your families. And
Love you guys.
Kristin, Tom, and Michael Rosenbaum, a.k.a. DJ Sexy Lexi. Thank you for joining the Fan Expo HQ virtual experience for Smallville.